The film begins within a galaxy far, far away but instantly leaps to the action. No opening crawl. We see an Empire ship land. Lyra Erso runs off to warn her husband, Jyn Erso, and daughter Jyn Erso. Lyra calls Saw Gerrera and tells him that they have come. Galen says goodbye to his daughter and tells her that he loves her, Stardust, as he heads off to face the Empire. Lyra also gives Jyn a necklace, telling her that the Force will always be with her and she can trust on it. Outside, Galen meets Orson Krennic, Ben Mendelsohn, who tries to get him to come back to work for the Empire. He asks about his family, and Galen lies. When Orson tells stormtroopers to check the surroundings, Lyra appears and they have a standoff. During the standoff, despite his pleas, Lyra attempts to shoot Orson, only hits his arm, and is killed. A stormtrooper toy is then discovered, and Orson tells them to give chase to find Galen's daughter. Jyn runs away and manages to hide under a rock. Later, Saw appears and rescues her. Fast forward to the Ring of Kafrene. There, an older Jyn is being held captive. Meanwhile, the rebellion discuss the Empire's plan to create a giant weapon capable of destroying entire planets. At Jeddah, Bodhi Rook, a pilot that was with the Empire but now serves the rebels, arrives and is apprehended by the forces there. At Wobani, Jyn is being transferred with other prisoners. Suddenly, rebel forces break in and free them. Wanting to escape, Jyn attacks the rebels and tries to flee but is stopped by K2SO, an enforcer droid working for the rebellion. At Yavin, the rebels talk to Jyn about her father. She says that she last saw her dad 15 years ago. The rebels then question her about Saw Gerrera and that he is an extremist causing problems in Jeddah. The rebels say that finding Saw and the captured pilot is paramount to find out what the Empire is plotting. They offer her a deal, find Saw, and she is free to go. As Jyn boards the craft with K2SO and Cassian Andor, Cassian is told to kill their targets and not perform any extractions. At Jeddah, Bodhi is confronted by Saw, who is now a human/machine hybrid and requires a mask to breathe. At the Empire, Orson discusses with Grand Moff Tarkin about the weapon they are creating. The senator urges that they perform a test of the weapon. As this happens, Jyn, K2SO, and Cassian arrive at Jeddah. K2SO is told to wait at the ship, and while Cassian scouts the area, Jyn is approached by Chirrut Imwe, a blind warrior that notices her necklace and the quality of the stone. Later, when Jyn and Cassian roam the city, Jyn notices snipers and the area quickly becomes a war zone. Rebel and Empire forces alike fight, and while Jyn and Cassian are nearly killed, K2SO arrives and defeats the stormtroopers. Chirrut then tries to let them in his location but is ambushed by stormtroopers. Showing excellent skill despite his visual impairment, Chirrut defeats the stormtroopers, but all are eventually captured by Saw's crew. While Cassian, Chirrut, and Baze Malbus are in a cell and quickly notice that Bodhi is in the other cell, Jyn is brought directly to Saw. Saw is surprised to see Jyn, but Jyn instantly confronts him about letting her be a prisoner. Saw then says that it was to give her her best chance and suspects Jyn of being told to head there to kill him. Jyn then says that she wants nothing to do with the rebellion at all and Saw, looking defeated, tells her that there is no rebellion without hope. While this is happening, the Empire decides to test their weapon. Saw shows Jyn a hologram sent by her father. Her father says in the message that he went with the Empire to give the rebels their best chances and that the weapon they were building is called the Death Star. He says that he made a failsafe in the Death Star by placing a trap, exploded, and the entire thing dies. He also apologizes to a tearful Jyn and tells her to fight for him and to finish what he started, save the rebellion and save the dream. Suddenly, the Death Star begins to attack Jeddah. Chirrut, Bodhi, and Baze head to the ship while Cassian gets Jyn. Despite Jyn's help, Saw acknowledges his weakness and tells her to leave him. Everyone then escapes in the ship with K2SO while Jeddah is destroyed and Saw is crushed to death. With their test being successful and Jeddah gone, the Empire rejoices. However, Grand Moff Tarkin decides to claim all the credit from Director Orson and threatens further action for his ambitions intruding their plan. On the ship, Cassian is secretly given instructions to kill Galen if they find him. The people on the ship discuss the hologram Jyn saw but Jyn, having left the hologram in Jeddah, is not trusted. She convinces them, however, to head to Edu and find Galen. In Edu, the crew crashes their ship and decide to get a new one. As Cassian and Bodhi head out, Jyn questions Cassian's motives. Upon hearing K2SO say that Cassian's weapon was in sniper mode, she heads out with Chirrut and Baze. On the Empire's side, Galen and other members of the Empire are being interrogated on who secretly worked for the rebels. When Orson threatens to kill everyone, Galen rushes forward and confesses. With this in mind, Orson still kills off the other suspected members. While this is happening, Cassian has his target on Galen but eventually does not pull the trigger. Meanwhile, having snuck up on the rebels, Bodhi and Jyn arrive. Jyn calls out to her father just as rebel forces arrive and cause an explosion and a fight. When she regains consciousness, Jyn finds her father in critical condition. She tearfully reunites with her father before Galen passes away and Cassian pulls her from his body as they head out of Edu. On the ship, an angry Jyn questions Cassian on his motives and he replies with the fact that everyone has lost something for the rebellion, and that she only truly started to care because of her father. On the Empire's side, Orson arrives and reports everything to Darth Vader. Vader is angry and force chokes Orson, letting him go after ordering him to make the Death Star work without any flaws. At a rebellion hearing, the rebels are doubtful of Jyn's story and her credibility. She ends her argument with rebellions are built on hope but still fail to get approval on her proposed mission to infiltrate the Empire's headquarters in Scarif and get the plans for the Death Star. Outside, Cassian approaches Jyn about going on a mission. Several other rebels have decided to join them. With their crew in tow, they use the callsign Rogue One and head to Scarif to do the mission themselves. At Scarif, Bodhi convinces the Empire forces to let them land, and while K2SO, Jyn, and Cassian head to get the plans, the other rebels sneak through and plant explosives. Director Orson also arrives to monitor the Empire's activities for the Death Star as well as Grand Moff Tarkin. Soon enough, the rebels use their explosives and cause explosions all over the planet. With a full-on battle emerging, other rebel forces decide to go to Scarif as well. When the rebels arrive, however, the Empire decides to create a force field over Scarif to prevent more rebel forces from coming in. Inside the control room with the data, K2SO opens the door to allow Jyn and Cassian to enter the database and extract the plans to the Death Star. While they search for the plans, K2SO fights off the stormtroopers. They eventually find the plans under the code name of Jyn's nickname, Stardust. When they find the files, K2SO notes the force field and tells them to deliver it themselves manually by getting the file themselves and then climb all the way to the top to begin transmission. Stormtroopers then overpower him, and K2SO dies, permanently locking the door to the control room with Jyn and Cassian inside, who are also seen by Director Orson. Meanwhile, at the battle, the rebels are able to take down several AT-ATs, and Bodhi manages to find a way to the control switch to turn on communications. He is, however, unable to turn the switch on during the battle, so Chirrut takes a risk and walks over to the switch and turns it on. He is, however, shot on the way back and dies in Baze's hands, telling him that he will always be one with the Force. Inside the control room, Jyn and Cassian are able to grab the Stardust file but are intercepted by Director Orson. Despite taking out the stormtroopers and being able to shoot Orson, Orson shoots Cassian, who falls, while Jyn narrowly escapes. While this is happening, Bodhi gets communications working but is killed by a bomb thrown by a stormtrooper. Baze is inspired by Chirrut's sacrifice and fights until he is also killed by a bomb held in the hands of a fallen stormtrooper. Jyn finally makes her way to the top and sees the command console for transmitting data to the rebels. The console prompts her to recalibrate the antenna, and she does, all the while not knowing that Orson is headed up. After the recalibrates the antenna, the location is hit by the battle, and she nearly falls off. Recovering her position, Jyn tries to send the data but is intercepted by Orson. He claims that she and her rebellion will die with her, but then a surprisingly alive, but heavily injured, Cassian appears and shoots Orson. With the threat down, and the rebels being able to turn the shield off, Jyn successfully gives the data of the Death Star to the rebels. While this is happening, Grand Moff Tarkin watches the carnage with Vader and turns the Death Star target to Scarif. While Scarif is about to be destroyed, the rebels note the sacrifice of the Rogue One. In Scarif, Jyn and Cassian hold hands and embrace on a beach as the Death Star obliterates them and the entire planet. We then see Darth Vader enter a rebel ship and mow down scores of rebel fighters as he chases the memory card containing the Death Star plans through the rebel flagship, arriving at the final hatch just in time to see Princess Leia's ship undock and escape. Inside Leia's ship, we see a CGI Leia. C-3PO. She is asked her what the plans mean and she answers, "Hope," signaling the start of a new hope.